All right, so much to get to. Let's start with mock drafts, John, because Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network wrote this tweet. I believe we'll see less groupthink in the draft this year because you don't have the pro days, scouts from different teams, all spending time around each other. You were in that boat, so we can get some perspective on that. But some are going to be shocked at how high or low some of these guys go. And then Ian Rappaport retweeted it and said, I had a GM tell me the media is wronger about mock drafts this year than you guys have ever been. Point being, players are going to be taken in places no one expects. And it took a while, but we finally got our Bob McGinn write-ups. Mekhi Becton likes to cook too much, according to an anonymous scout. And then as we're starting this podcast, I don't know if you saw this, but McGinn wrote that there are 3 teams that have taken Tua off of their draft boards completely.
I did not see that.
Yeah, so mock draft seasons wronger than they've ever been.
Well, one thing, there's always groupthink in your office in the sense of what do you talk to your fellow scouts about? What do you think about this player? Do you like this player? What did you give this player? Am I too high on this player? Am I too low on this player? That's natural. That's football teams, coaches, scouts, players, they all talk about football. And the other players, even players ask scouts what they think about it. It's just all insulated. But that's normal. And I think you can cut out the clutter, especially in meetings. To just get aggressive, you can lay it all out there. The difference becomes during the pro day circuit. Your coaches are heavily involved, and scouts talk to other scouts about where they have this guy after we have all the information. They've gone to the combine. What does your GM think about this player? And that can impact your decisions and your thought on that player. But, Guy, I think the biggest thing is scouts are part of the process all year long, right? They get all this information over the summer. They start putting together the list. They get sent out on the road. The All-Stars, the Combines, the Pro Days, just an everlasting circuit it's just 365 kind of. Where the coaches, once OTAs start, the coaches from OTAs till your last game, whether that's week 17, whether that's a playoff game, whether it's the fucking Super Bowl, all they're thinking about, right, is games. Getting our guys ready to play. They might watch a little college football on Saturday, but if it's October 15th and Saturday at the hotel, what do you think's the number one thing on most coaches' mind? The next day's game. So there's game mode, football mode, scheme mode, development mode, and they get thrown into the process right around the combine. So what happens on the pro day circuit? They see their friends. If you're a running back coach and you're going to Ohio State's pro day. Let's say Ohio State's pro day would have happened. Do you know who would have been? A lot of people that would have been there. I would say probably 10 running back coaches in the NFL, maybe more, because Dobbins is a guy that could go in the first round or the second round. So good and bad teams sending their running back coaches there. Okuda's there, so I think you'd want maybe not as many DB coaches would be there, but I think you'd want to feel like, okay, if you're going to put your stamp on CJ Henderson, or I guess TCU's got a guy, I want you to get a feel for this player. He's the best guy. So maybe 10 plus DB coaches were there. What do you think happens before the pro day starts and all those guys are sitting there? They're talking. And who else is there? Albert Breer, Peter King, DJ might be there. I can't tell you how much talking goes on at those things. And where do assistant coaches usually spend their time when they're in the office? With the coordinator and the head coach talking about this stuff. Where the GM is a little bit, he is a manager where he just hesitant to give you certain information. But the coach is still a coach, even the head coach, that he's talking to his assistants about these players, about what he thinks. So it all gets kind of thrown out there.
Or how their GM's not listening to them.
Yeah, so what gets talked about to Albert Breer? Well, our head coach loves this guy. Our general manager does. And just you have a flow of information. Guy, that has been completely cut off. I found myself, I've probably never texted my friends in the league less over the last month just because you're not really living with it every day because you're not looking up and seeing the pro day like, God, what was Chase Young like alive
right.
or all this. You're just like, should I go for a jog today? That's what I'm thinking about. That's what my friends are thinking about. Like they're watching their kids. The information that's out there has it's been the least amount of information in the history of the modern day draft.
Well, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast or not. Maybe I have, but everyone is and probably a lot of our listeners, work from home is what everybody. It's the way of our lives right now. And so a lot of people have said, and you and I have talked about this, boy, work from home is going to open up eyes that you don't need office space. And you don't need to go to an office. You can just work from home. It's going to change the world as we know it in terms of the way people do business. And maybe it will. I don't necessarily think it'll change the work as we know it for the better. I think there are just little incremental pieces of nuanced life that occur when you go to an office and interact with people, whatever your work environment is, that you lose when you're at home. And sure, you could say, no, I'm way more efficient from home, and that might be true. But the core of human essence is not business efficiency. It's human interaction. And all these little things that happen that Albert Breer, because he talks to 13 different coaches over the course of 2 days face-to-face, and they're just casually chatting, all that information together is very different than a bunch of text messages. Hey, man, what do you think of Akuda? And then the guy gives you a quote back that's just a quote. And you just don't get this human interaction that's so critical. And when you talk to somebody in a human way, they might say something to you that they wouldn't say otherwise in a text because there's all this nuance. I've found there are a lot of like political conversations that happen, and I got text threads going on about people's opinions. A lot harder to take in text than they are if you have the conversation with someone. It's a lot harder to go, man, fuck that guy. No, I'm not in the mood for this conversation. I've said that on text many times to myself. I'm just not in the mood. Conversations that I could have in person that it's easier to disagree and go back and forth about it. Not to mention the fact that my hip locked up on me while I was 1 a.m. last night. I had to get up and walk off I don't even know what, just because I'm sitting so much. So I don't think all this work from home is as beneficial as people think it is.
Yeah, if you got into an argument with Alyssa, is it easier to hash it out over if you were in like a different city or something over text message, or when you see her next?
Oh, the text is the
when
worst.
When you said the offense instead of offense, imagine if you got during the season 1 week, you just tried this out. Take your entire offensive staff, you guys work from home Monday, Tuesday, put together the game plan. You do everything on Zoom instead of being in the office. Would they be as efficient if they were all sitting next to each other?
No. You know what? I read this article about the guy who is putting together the Michael Jordan doc.
Yeah.
Which we're going to do a podcast Sunday night after. And he was saying how they're not done with it yet. Like when the first 2 parts air Sunday night, they're actually not done with part 10 yet.
That's why they couldn't put it all out in once, probably.
It was supposed to go out in June, and even then it was going to be tight.
Gotcha.
But he said one of the things is like we're all working from home. So you can't just be like, hey, come in here. What do you think of the way this looks? The editor, right? Hey, what do you think about the way this looks? Just think about the workflow is so much more complicated.
Or like, hey, guys, we're a little behind on this. Let's meet in 10 minutes and just hash some things out. Where it's like, hey, does everyone have time on Zoom? It's like, well, I got to feed little Jimmy. Well, my dog hasn't taken a shit. It's like, fuck. You're right. I'm completely with you. Now, this, at the end of the day, what the media thinks about it's irrelevant. I think your point on the bigger picture of society, I'm with you. Working from home, moving forward. Well, podcasts, we literally talk for a living, or we're just putting together. It's actually very feasible. If we were running a venture capitalist firm or a real estate firm or a food or whatever business, it is actually would be inefficient to maintain this.
Yeah.
But you could argue this during the draft process. I wonder if teams find out, God, we were able to keep a lot more things in-house doing this. And from a competitive advantage standpoint, no one knew what we were even close to thinking because our information, one, our running back coach had no clue who the GM actually liked, where it'd be impossible to hold that from him because like, hey guys, it'd be like Tuesday in mid-April. Hoagie's in the draft room right now. Just got dropped off. Pizza's here. And everyone just comes in there. What do you think when you grab your hoagie and your coach runs into the scouting director and you're just looking at the board like, God, man, I love DeAndre Swift. Why are we got? It's just normal conversation. This is football.
Yeah.
But that was. Do you know where we had food dropped off consistently during this time? The fucking draft room. Why? Because there was an unlimited amount of space to throw a bunch of pizzas or hoagies or Chinese food or whatever. And guess where everyone comes, especially football guys, where the food is.
Right.
So it's just, you're just limiting the amount of people that know information that, hell, they should know. It's not like they're on your team. Like they're not moles, right? But they're also humans. When you know stuff, if I have a close buddy and I'm the Niners West Coast scout, and I'm very, very tight with, let's say, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers college scouting director, and I'm at the USC Pro Day, and I'm there like, I know, hell, man, we could be in the Pittman business, so I'm pretty locked in. And I see my buddy from Tampa there that's the college scouting director. Well, we're going to talk. Well, they're picking right after us. So what? He's like, hey, man, what do you guys like at 13? And I'm just like, because I'm just friends with them. I'm not going to lie, probably. I'm just like, yeah, Lynch and Kyle, they love CJ Henderson. Well, what's he doing? Telling Jason Light and Bruce Arians, like, hey, man, we can probably isolate this and this and this. It's just human nature
Let me ask
for
you
this shit
this.
to be talked about.
Do those interactions ever benefit you? In other words, do you ever talk to a guy? I don't mean benefit you in the way that you just described, but I mean benefit you in the way where you're talking about Michael Pittman Jr. and the guy's like, I mean, the problem is, and I'm making this up completely, the problem is that that knee injury he had like last offseason that no one really knows about. And all of a sudden now you're like, oh, well, I guess I better go talk to the trainer or something like that.
Or like this. And again, I hate using Michael Pittman in this, but whoever, player X, we've already taken him off our board. That DUI he got that the school got thrown out, and it didn't get out. You're like, the what? What are you telling me? And can you imagine? I didn't do it long enough, but it'd probably be inevitable if you were a road scout for a decade. There would be like a year later, it turns out this guy had a domestic violence that never got out, that the school covered up and you didn't have, and your job is to be the detective. So yeah, 1,000,000%. It does not behoove you to stay silent. But part of, are you just going to lie to everybody, even the people you know? It's probably not when you're not the decision maker. Now, granted, you might not have all the information, but it is there has been, if you look at it like a dam and there was just a massive natural leak, the water flows. That's just natural. Some of it's good. I'd say over half of it's kind of irrelevant. But you've basically just patched up the majority of that water flow. So there was just like, whenever the water does come, could we just see the first 20 picks of just a bunch of curveballs? Like Jordan Love's the second. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because again, like Jordan Love's a player. How big would his pro day have been?
Huge.
It would have been like, oh, Gruden's there. Oh, Bruce Arians is there. You're like, Jesus. Like, could this guy go? And then Albert Breer and DJ are there. And then some rumors that they got. Like, hey, I've heard fucking people love this guy. They think, it's
the other part of it.
That was happening at the combine. It was like, Jordan Love, and then it just goes silent.
Here's the other part, though, is that's where you get, like, that's how you know you need to trade up from whatever, 24 to 18, because the team at 19 loves the guy you want. Right? Are we going to see less our team's going to have less recon on who else loves the guy they love? Are they going to be harder pressed to figure out who they need to jump ahead of because they just have less information about who else likes a guy? Like, if all the mock drafts are wrong, then how are teams figuring out, oh, well, Tampa actually really likes Laviska Shenault. We better get up 2 spots ahead of them.
Well, there's a huge element that's going to be that missing. You're just going to rely on like your agents, what they're hearing about their players from other teams, and assume it's good information. I was listening. Thomas Dimitroff was on Peter King's podcast. When they first decided to do the draft, they had a conference call with every general manager. And I think Goodell was on the call. And one thing he was like, let's just make this as easy as possible. He was just throwing out some ideas. No trades. And Dimitroff was like, people snapped. He's like, this is not, if you look at the GMs in this league right now, a lot of guys this is not old school GMs. These guys are really aggressive. He said one of the guys was like John Schneider, was like, what? And it got poo-pooed fast.
John was like, let me just trade back now, and then you can enact that rule.
See, this would, and part of, back to your original point, these would have been conversations. If something weird was going to happen with the draft, they would have had at the owners meeting, right? When all the GMs were there. So there was a huge element. And again, it got hashed out and he felt good about it.
Right.
He thought, and Mayock said this too, that he doesn't think the difference in the first round is really going to be any different either way, because you've been locked into Laviska Shenaults and the Herberts, and you've been talking about these players for 12 months. CD Lambs. Like they have been the top players. Maybe a couple curveballs, but even the curveballs you start locking into around October. He thought it was much more like the third day of just having no medical on a dude from, the Fresno State sixth player that the GM didn't spend any time on, the coaches haven't seen, might have gone to the combine, but you weren't focused in on. That's where, to me, that I think those are the type players, guy, probably more than like Michael Pittman buzz at a pro day. Michael Pittman's good. Michael Pittman's going in the top 60 picks. And he was going in the top 60 picks, whether fucking pro days happen, whether the combine happen, whether the draft happens on Zoom. But how about the dude in the 5th round that all of a sudden goes to a pro day? You're like, holy shit, we might need to relook at this guy. And all of a sudden, instead of going to the 5th, he goes to like the end of the 3rd. Because a coach tells a coach, like, I love this guy. Our GM actually sneaky loves this guy. And then your coach tells the GM, like, I heard this guy's GM loves this guy. And you're like, all right, are we too low on this guy? We got to move him up. That's where, to me, like, are we changing, Patrick Queen from LSU, the linebacker? No. To me, it's like the guard that's going to go, like, on the 3rd day might have ended up going in the mid-3rd round because you realize, like, this guy's never going to be there for us.
You get so much from an interaction that you probably don't have on Zoom, right? When you walk up next to a guy, maybe the head football coach at a pro day, and you're like, what do you think of this guy? And on Zoom, he doesn't give you this. It's like, fuck. You're like, oh, because I've been to basketball shoot-arounds where I'm like, God, this guy's going to be a first rounder. What do you think? And the coach is like, a pain in my ass, I'll tell you that. Which on a Zoom call, you're not getting that. There's just something in that gray area that you're not getting.
Well, how about this? So when you go to a pro day, like let's use Drew Hill as an example. He's Lincoln Riley's equivalent of the general manager. Our buddy hired me at Fresno State. If you know Drew Hill, and some of these scouts, right, have known Drew Hill now from Fresno State to Oklahoma. These guys are now GMs, or like an Adam Peters was going to the West Coast in 05 for 15 plus. Like you had a really good relationship with him.
Because Drew likes to take you out.
And you walk over to him and you go, who loves CD? Like you just asked him about CD Lamb.
Yeah.
Like who's really in on CD Lamb? He's like, I'm telling you, dog. Everyone's acting like Mayek's going to get him. I hear the Jets are going to take him at 11. Like they cannot stop coming around here calling me. Just to come. Like, are you going to Zoom and get that same interaction where it's like, you tell your GM, I think CD Lamb is not going to be there at a 12. And those type things are just, they don't exist right now. Or they do, but like you said, you're not as comfortable making like a concrete, absolute statement like you feel good about it.
I talked to, you like this, John, name drop. I talked to David Shaw on Friday, and I asked him what he's missing at the office, that he just a little thing from the office that he's missing right now. And he said, many years ago he went to a coaches association meeting, conference, and there was a panel that was just Bo Schembechler and Joe Paterno. Those are the two guys on the panel. And they asked Schembechler what he regrets most from his career. And he said his biggest regret is that he took too much of his assistant's time because he just loved hanging out with his assistants so much. He would make meetings last longer. He'd pop into their offices and talk to them about things that he didn't really need to be talking to them about. And he kept them from their families just because he loved being around them so much. And that's what Shaw said. He's like, I just miss walking down the hall, knocking on a door, walking into a guy's office, and talking to him for 10 minutes. And the situation you described is exactly what he said. He's like, now it's like I text him, hey, do you have time to Zoom today? And he's like, well, I got 3 Zoom calls with recruits, and then we got dinner with the family. So if we could do it tomorrow at like 3 in the afternoon. And he's like, that is missing. That's missing. And I wonder, like when you say the hoagies have been delivered, not only are you not exchanging information with other people on your staff, but I wonder there's got to be a conversation where during the hoagies, Scout John Middlekauff remembers, oh, I forgot to tell this guy about this other guy I saw when I was watching Laviska Shenault tape. I saw this corner from Utah. Have you seen him? And I'm like, no, I haven't seen him. And then you go watch him. And it's just something organic that happens.
Or like, hey, man, you look at your wide receiver coach. Like, I got this guy in the 7th round. I fucking like him. Like, I think we should think about
But you
drafting.
wouldn't make time for that conversation. It's too far down your to-do list.
No, there's too much going on. There aren't many, like, a lot gets accomplished over food in a football office. Like, you bring up a good point, though, about coaches. You know how you always hear athletes, like you ask Peyton Manning, like, what do you miss most? It's not like the game. It's not the accolades. It's not even winning and losing. It's like, I just miss like practice with the guys. I miss just being around the guys. I miss the guys. Coaching is just a different version of that, right? Especially in football where you have a staff of 10, 15 people that it's like you're all in this little bunker together, you and then your players. It's like this little group. And now you're separated them all. Like it's got to be a pretty surreal feeling for, especially these guys are grinders. A lot of players naturally, for every Odell Beckham that works out on their own, a lot of guys they live in their team's area. They utilize the team facility. They're just around a lot because they know. Here's what else they know. Why wouldn't you go in? You get free lunch every day. It's like, what else are you doing? You know, if you're not on vacation or whatever, you're going to work out. You're going to you like the coordinator. They're your friends. You're not spending that much time talking to your neighbor about like why stick. I mean, that's or how am I going to get open against this defense next year? That's what the greats and just good players think about.
Yeah.
I saw Kwaski Tart tweeted out a video today. Like, for all the young kids that are at home, here's a 4-cone drill that I use. This football players like playing football. Football coaches like talking football and coaching football, and none of it can be done right now.
Before we move on, do you think there's any commonality between? And I haven't really read the details of the story because it just alerted as soon as we started this podcast. Any commonality between the teams that don't have Tua on their board? Like, do you think it's teams that wouldn't be drafted that have? I guess what I wonder is, have there been conversations among teams who are drafting like at 14, 15, who go, what are we gonna do in the crazy event that Tua Tagovailoa is tumbling and he's sitting there at 14 or 15? Because I got to think that conversation, just that contingency is being had,
to be happening, right? You'd be negligent to not have had that conversation.
Are those the teams taking them off their draft board? Like, you know what? It's just, or is it teams at the top 10 that are doing it? What do you think?
To me, there are only two reasons you'd take them off the draft board, and one I think doesn't exist anymore, given what we've seen in the league the last decade. One would be height requirements. Certain teams have certain requirements at certain positions that if you don't qualify, you don't get to go on the draft board. Wouldn't you say that'd be pretty negligent in 2020 if a guy's 6 feet tall to not have a quarterback on your board just for that height?
Yeah.
I would say that would be pretty limited. Now, Mike Lombardi said the one thing with the Patriots, they haven't. You get graded extra harshly when you're smaller at quarterback. So, but I don't think you take off the board. And then obviously, to me, if you're off the board I think it's 1,000,000% medical. Like, I just think your hip is whatever.
But I'm asking,
I don't think you take him off the board based on like let's say you're drafting say you're the Packers. Would you take him at 31? You're like, we would not take him because we don't want him, so we take him off the board. No, you just wouldn't. You would have him graded as a second-round pick.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think there's any common thread? Like, to me, it's easier to say he's off our board when you're drafting 21st. It's harder to say he's off our board when you're drafted 4th. And, like, Herbert's already gone because the Chargers moved up to 3, and now it's like Tua can be yours, but you pass on him because he's off your board.
If I was a GM guy, I would not take him off my board unless my doctor told me he couldn't play, because if he was good and I took him off the board because I didn't think he was any good in 3 years, that could really discredit me to my owner if he becomes like Drew Brees. His upside's too great to risk that, to me. At quarterback, especially if I'm a team that has a questionable quarterback future. Couldn't you argue if you're like the Minnesota Vikings and he falls to you, it just might be a smart move to just acquire him?
I will say this, though, and this might happen, where he gets drafted wherever he gets drafted, and he's back from the hip, and it's great. And after a year, everyone's like, the teams that took him off the board, idiots. And those GMs might go, hey, it wasn't just about his hip, though. And maybe it's not even teams that took him off the board. It's just people that are concerned. Let me rephrase it. Just people that are concerned about Tua's health. It's not just, is he medically cleared for this year to be a quarterback? It's also 4 years from now, how many games has he missed?
Well, let's say he's the equivalent of Todd Gurley. It's not worth it, right?
No.
As a first pick if he's Todd Gurley.
No.
Was Todd Gurley worth it for the Rams at pick 10? Would you say
they hadn't
yes?
Extended him.
If they hadn't extended him, yes.
Yeah. Given that they were ready to, they turned out they were ready to win.
Wouldn't you say a huge element of Tua, if I took him off medically and he has a couple good years, you'd go, I don't think he can last.
Yeah.
Like, that's your argument.
Right. Well, like I
You're like,
remember.
you got to give me 8 years for my argument.
Yeah, well, but it's true.
I know.
It is true. Like I remember on a smaller level, Buddy, who's an NBA scout, said his team took Kevon Looney off their draft board coming out of UCLA because of his hip. Well, after a couple of years, it was like, God, you guys screwed that up. Well, now it's like
checking dudes in the NBA Finals.
Now it's like, man, no, you didn't. Maybe you didn't screw it up. But it's just.
Well, didn't Brandon Roy have a degenerate knee?
Brandon Roy? Did he have that coming out of college?
Yeah, to me, he's a 50 times better version of Looney. But I think Looney would be a classic one that a lot of teams pass on, and then for a couple of years, you're like, Jesus Christ. But now you're like, I told you.
No doubt. You just hope that you're still around to tell for your GM to say, all right, Middlekauff, you were right about that guy.
If you're not, you put it on your resume like 3 years later.
Yeah, you let everybody know. All right, John, before we move on, let's tell the people this podcast is brought to you in part by buyraycon.com/ham. Unlike some of your other wireless earbud options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet. No dangling wires or stems to distract anyone during your video calls. And we got the newest model, the Everyday E25.
Yeah, they're sweet. You already know Raycon earbuds start at half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market. Their newest model, the Everyday E25, like you said, that we have. I used it yesterday. I know you use. The bass is awesome. They're great for music. It fits in your ear perfectly. They give you a ton of different options, size. You know, we all have different, I guess it's not called the earlobe, but whatever that little hole is. Different sizes, so it fits you. Haberman showing you. God, you're doing a good job here on this video. I was impressed. I am impressed. I mean, I use them. You've heard us talk. The company was co-founded by a guy Ray J, Snoop Dogg, Cardi B, Melissa Etheridge. She had some bangers back in the day. Brandy, J.R. Smith also involved in the project. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/ham. That's buyraycon.com/ham for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. Buyraycon.com/ham.
All right, Middlekauff. Really, if you're listening to this podcast, you really should watch the video of that ad. Here's the other draft story. Bob Quinn, openly the GM of the Lions. The Lions have had talks about trading the third pick. Kind of feels like they're gonna, doesn't it?
See, that's one of those with the rumors. I don't know what to believe.
But I think he's kind of said we're open for business. Now, I don't buy when they say, like, oh, the Lions kind of like Tua. It's like, okay, guys.
Well, to me, for them to be open for business, guy, who's trading for – is someone trading up for Tua or Herbert? You would say that it's possible simply because
I do think it's possible.
You have 5 and 6, two teams that need a quarterback. And there's a very good chance that both those two teams have the same number 2 quarterback. And to me, someone tweeted at me or DM'd me the other day, like, if you're the Chargers or the Lions, if you're the Chargers and you wait and the Lions take the quarterback you had at 2, you automatically take the quarterback you took at 3, or vice versa. The Chargers jump you if you're the Dolphins and they take the guy you wanted and you don't feel as good about 3, do you automatically take it? And I said no.
No.
I think we have a history in recent drafts of good players going in the 2nd and 3rd round. These teams, you can always mortgage the future next year. You do not want to get saddled with a quarterback in the top 5 that you do not view as a top 5 quarterback. You cannot do it. That to me is a crippling move. That's where the Lions, I think, are hoping. Honestly, it probably hurts. This is where the non-pro days hurts the Lions, because I think we would know, like, God, the Chargers and the Dolphins both want this guy, and then you can play him. I think there's so much unknown. If you're the Lions, you're like, we kind of like Tua. And then you realize, like, God, did neither of these teams like Tua? The Dolphins are they're thinking about Herbert. And it's like, yeah, they don't even like Herbert. You're just throwing shit out there, and then it's like, well, if no one's really biting, I don't blame them either. They're in a tough situation.
And the other thing, if you're the Chargers or the Dolphins, you're like, are the Lions going to go back to how far back are the Lions willing to go, and what would they need to go back there? Because if the Cardinals aren't trading up, and the Jags aren't trading up, and the Browns aren't trading up, and the Jets don't need a quarterback, and the Raiders aren't moving up, and the Niners aren't moving up, and the Broncos aren't moving up, the Bucks aren't moving up, the Falcons, the Cowboys, like half the draft behind the Lions they're not getting up that far, and they might not even need to. The Lions just might have to make the pick because their only potential trade partners are the Dolphins and the Chargers. And if the Dolphins like Tua and the Chargers think that, and the Chargers are cool with Herbert, then neither one really has much incentive to go anywhere.
But if you are, to me, the Chargers or the Dolphins, and you are nervous, you're number 2 guy, you have a distinct drop-off.
Yeah.
This is where the Lions, to me, don't have as much leverage. Like, hey, man, we'll give you next year's second to move. Like, you're not getting a first-round pick. You might get a couple thirds, but you're not getting much for us to move up far. But we will move up just to ensure that we get our guy. Because to me, if you're one of those 2 teams and you feel very confident that the number 2 quarterback on your board, or I would just look at it like the number 1, Burrow's out of there.
Right.
I'm just focused on do I think either one of these 2 guys, or throw Jordan Love in there too, is a franchise quarterback? If I believe that, I got to be aggressive to get him. Because that would be the Gettleman or even Mitch Trubisky. Those, Mitch didn't work. But it's hard to fault the Bears. If that's your number 1 guy, do I give you a conviction credit? I mean, you were wrong, but I do like the mindset. It's right. Gettleman, I couldn't risk him not being there at 17. And it's like, well, Dave, I don't think anyone was going to take him. But if you believe in this guy, if in 5 years no one gives a shit, right?
Exactly. If he's a good player, people say he knew. Yeah. Holdouts. Dak. Maybe Jamal Adams, too. Jamal Adams. Nobody believed in me. Jamal Adams. What pick was he? 4 or 5?
6.
6? Remember what did he say? Does he remember every player or every team that passed on him?
No, he tweeted out that something of the, not verbatim, but like, when you fall in the draft, it lights a fire under you. You remember every name that went above you. And then his college teammate, or maybe just another guy. I think it was Marcus Lattimore. So he played at LSU, Ohio State. They probably just elite players know each other. Just tweeted out like, no, I think they both played at LSU. Jamal Adams went to LSU. So Lattimore played with him at LSU. Or did Lattimore go to Ohio State? Whatever.
Lattimore went to LSU. Right?
Did he? No, Lattimore went to Ohio State.
Who are we thinking of?
We're thinking of, I don't even know, but they had so many defensive backs. Jamal Adams went to LSU. And he just tweeted, I mean, I fucked this whole thing up. But he basically just tweeted, like, bro, you remember 5 names. This isn't Draymond Green here.
Yeah, Lattimore went to Ohio State.
Lattimore went with, like, Conley.
Yeah.
Eli Apple.
Maybe we're just thinking that Ohio State had a bunch of guys.
Yeah. They've had safety, too, like Von Bell and other guys.
Yeah. Anyway.
Good, sweet DBs just know each other.
Bad year to hold out. If your whole holdout's on Zoom.
Do you think a virtual holdout is even that big of a story?
Well, do you like have a Zoom meeting and then not show? Is that how you flex your muscle?
Well, they send you the email, the link, and you don't click it.
Yeah. He no-showed the Zoom meeting.
Now, Jamal Adams, to me, Jamal Adams, he's an edgy guy. Like, he's a safety. He knows the defense. I don't even care. I do think there is something to Dak. They are installing a new offense, right? Is Dak just going to go blind? Because ultimately, Dak, if they do force you to play on the 1-year contract, they do have him a little bit by the balls. I mean, it goes both ways. Do you risk, like, not knowing that much and trying to learn really fast? Or are you still getting info on the DL from Kellen Moore of what to do, and you're just using this as leverage to get your money? Because if you're the Cowboys, it also doesn't behoove you to have your quarterback not know what's going on, show up the week of the season. To me, the quarterback thing with a new coach is a little complicated. Jamal Adams, same defense, whatever. I do think Dak, if you're just going over verbiage and terminology, like something I'd like my starting quarterback to know, right?
So it does spook you a little bit if he doesn't show up to the Zoom meeting.
Does he gain leverage? He would gain a lot if he didn't show up if training camps happen.
Especially because McCarthy's like, if you're a returning head coach, you go, I know the guy, whatever. But McCarthy's probably telling Jerry, like, Jerry, you want to waste this whole year? I need to talk to this guy.
We're installing new plays. He's my quarterback. You would agree, probably no player.
Kellen.
No.
Kellen, get in game shape.
Does any player in pro sports have more leverage in a quote-unquote holdout than your starting quarterback?
No.
You can't function.
No. Yeah.
I actually think Dak could maybe like it would be a huge story if OTAs were going on. It's like Dak Prescott's not there, and it would be good for him. I don't think it'll be a headline, and we'll probably BS about it. But it's like there's only so much to say. He's not at a Zoom meeting. I do think if they start practicing, he doesn't show up. That's probably the biggest story in the NFL, right?
Yeah, there is something about an empty locker that puts pressure on people, right? When the media is asking every one of his teammates about it, what's it like to be here without Dak? Everyone, right? That's a big element. Is just everyone has to answer those questions. Your coach gets tired of talking about it at every well, coaches aren't doing press conferences every day. Your coach at OTA is doing press conferences every day. The OC, the player, everyone just gets it's just nonstop because somebody says something every day. It's just part of the news cycle because the cameras are there. They got to have something.
What about when to me the video, the visual, and the pressure from the fans, like when the huddle breaks and it's like, that's Guy Haberman from Texas
When
State.
the backup is just spiking out routes.
Yeah. And Amari's lollygagging. You're like, this sucks.
You're like, we just paid Amari and we can't even get him the ball. What a waste of money that's going to be if we don't have Dak here.
I do, like, usually I'm not a huge sympathetic holdout guy. You got to be Aaron Donald or Khalil Mack to be like, they're drawing a line. They're making the right move. If I'm Dak, I go, you just gave Amari Cooper $100 million. You guys didn't hesitate about Zeke. He's shown about 7 titties ripping things off. He's been arrested. He's been in all this trouble. And I have been a model citizen. I've been a pretty good quarterback. And I've been cheap for you, Jerry. And I can't get paid?
Yeah. And Amari's money is flushed down the toilet if I'm not here. Whatever he's worth goes down the tubes if I'm not here.
Well, to me, if you gave any general manager a choice, would you let Amari walk, keep Dak, or let Dak walk and keep Amari? You'd keep Dak and try to get another wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
You could have argued, did the Cowboys make the right decision keeping Amari?
Well, if they keep Dak, which they've
but I still think there is still going to be pressure on Amari to, like, he's got to even get better.
Yeah,
right?
but that's a legitimate question that you could answer. Yes, they did the right thing keeping this player. The answer to that question is no if they don't have a quarterback. And they've got, I mean, here's the other thing. It's like, where's this going?
Okay, here'd be my
Dak's
counter.
not playing for anybody else.
Would you be better off of giving Byron Jones and keeping a sweet corner, using that extra money that you save because of Byron Jones cheaper than Amari, getting another player or two, and then using your mid-first round pick on a wide receiver?
Yeah, but again, this comes back to, is your quarterback great enough that you just get him a receiver that's 75% of Amari and he can make him almost as good as Amari?
Yeah, you get nervous.
That's the hang-up, right? It's like you got a receiver that's dependent on his quarterback. You got a quarterback that's partly dependent on the other players around him, which I guess everybody is to some degree.
Well, and you traded a first-round pick for Amari Cooper.
So you had to kind of, yeah.
That's an element there.
Jamal Adams going to hold out?
But I mean, when anyone even notice? I'm serious.
I mean, not until the season starts.
Yeah, and he's gonna play. I mean, he's the 6th pick of the draft, so he's getting some change. He'll be there.
What channel's the G League on is really my question. I gotta watch this Jalen Green, John. $500K. You know what I like about Jalen Green signing with the G League for $500K?
What's that?
That it's like, yeah, man, $500K is a lot of money. You know what I mean? I think sports contracts are so big that we always talk about things like, like Christian McCaffrey's guarantee. I said it on the last podcast. Let's say it's $32 million, or maybe it's a little more than 32. Let's say it's 34, right? I just called $2 million a little more. Just a little bit of money, yeah. $2 million. But like Jalen Green is going to the G League select team for $500,000. It's like, you know what? Fuck yeah, $500,000 is a lot of money. And it's like $500,000. It just something feels right to me about talking about $500K like it's a lot of money to Jalen Green, because it is a lot of money. We're always like, whatever, just take a hometown discount. Just take $7 million less. $500K, man. Hell yeah.
Well, the thing that gets thrown out like so liberally on Twitter, like, you just give them the max. Give them the max. You got the max. You guys understand that the maxes for these NBA players are like 150 to 250, hundreds $1 million, 100, not 150K. That 1.5 million, $150 million. Like we're making fun of Ruth Chris. They make 40 a year, 40 million. You're talking, that's how much Russell Westbrook makes. Like they are so obscenely rich. Some of these even like Amari Cooper, like, oh, they got him 60 guaranteed, $60 fucking million. He was already the 4th pick in the draft, so he already made like 25. Amari's already accumulated 100 million in guaranteed. Now he's actually played, so he'll end up with like 150. Hell, he's 26 years old. I mean, when it's all said and the dust settles, Amari's like worth 180 million, and he's made 180 million in his playing career. Like, you crush it, you make it in business. If one day you like sell a company for like 10 million, I mean, you're like a legend in your community. It's like, that guy did it. The American freaking dream. Sold his company. And then you realize, well, with taxes, some payroll stuff, I actually only got 4 in the bank. But you're like, you did it, man. That's awesome. And we just talk about these athletes, especially these players. It always bothers me that, like, listen, college basketball, it's been proven. I mean, they get $100,000 under the table. And I was critical of the G League move when they threw it out probably like a year ago, maybe less than that. They're going to start giving $150,000 to the top high school guys. Like, guys, are you guys that naive? Like, they're not coming for that. Now, 500 is a number where it's like, 500, I don't need to deal with it. I just go right to the pros. They gave some other incentives. It's that's a number where probably everyone, if you offer, is coming.
I don't have to answer in 2 years. There's no I don't even have to. I don't lose a second of sleep over, is the FBI going to bang on my door about some bullshit I don't want to deal with?
Yeah, am I going to get my player of the year revoked in 5 years? Are we going to go to the Sweet 16? No, I'm just going to go. I give the NBA credit for the $500,000. Now, here's where, and I am pro attempting the move. Here's where I would red flag it. The league is paying for it. So all the profits of the league that get distributed, all the teams are involved in this. Does it benefit all the teams? Because one thing you see every year, a couple years ago, Cam Reddish was a higher rated prospect than Zion. You see it every year. I mean, you do college basketball games. You're like, oh, the USC has the number 3 overall guy, and he gets drafted 27th. Or I'm just, that might not be true, but you know what I'm saying.
They do have I think they got the number 1 overall guy coming in this year.
Who was the guy last year? The name that ended up getting drafted later. Didn't they have a score on USC? It was like a top 5
Kevin
player.
Porter Jr.
Didn't they have another guy? I thought it was a different name. Or was that the guy? Was it Porter Jr.?
Kevin Porter Jr. was the guy that ended up, like, he came in big time, then he doesn't play with a thigh bruise for like 2 weeks, and then he gets suspended, or it was more than 2 weeks.
Did he go in the first round?
Yeah, he went to the Cavs.
Pretty high still?
Where did he get drafted?
But regardless, he would have been a guy in the
30.
mix for. Wouldn't you say he would have been in the mix for like $500,000 out of high school? Wasn't he like a top 5 or 6 player?
Big time recruit. Yeah.
So I just think you're going to have a lot of misses on this.
Yeah.
For every Zion and Anthony Davis, I feel like there's going to be a lot of Porter Juniors or the kid from North Carolina, Cole Anthony, huge recruit, and then it's just like, it just didn't work. And then the likelihood of that guy being good. Again, I have no problem with the attempt of it. I actually think it's one of Adam Silver's best ideas. I just think execution of it is going to be maybe a little more complicated than you think.
Also, it's like, are you really willing to do this thing? Like, are you willing to do this for 10 to 15 years? Maybe it doesn't take quite that long, but what's the end game here? What is the purpose here? Is the purpose to try and create a minor league that can be a secondary source of income for your league, where people will watch these games because they're top prospects? Is that the idea, or is the idea just let's get our hands on the best prospects in the world earlier so that we control their early development? Because one of the great benefits of college sports for the NFL, definitely, but even for the NBA, is they don't have to pay for the first year of development for this guy when they don't want to be in high school gyms and at AAU tournaments. And this guy, Jalen Green, comes from a prep school in Napa, prolific prep. They don't want to. They just don't want to deal with that world. They don't have to. They let the colleges deal with it. They watch a guy in a big-time environment. Although as much as scouts say, man, I love to see him compete. Like, you go to Cameron Indoor and you just watch him at Duke, and but then they don't draft guys around that by and like they usually just draft the most talented guys. They don't draft as if they really care about that. But you're right. Zion's a great example of a guy who gets hurt, comes back. That whole thing around, maybe would have been the first pick anyway. But that whole thing around him was part of what I think made people pretty confident that he was good, that he's a successful guy, just because you saw him in these like adverse situations and he acted like a winner.
I do think it helps when you have an elite guy like this year. You saw Joe Burrow. He couldn't have played at any of the better teams. Like there are no questions to answer. Like I saw Zion against the best and he dominated. I saw Anthony Davis, Carmelo carry their teams.
But what I would say is the NBA was going to draft Zion in the top 4 anyway, right?
I agree, but my point is it just hammers home you don't have any concerns.
Yeah.
You know, where I think once you start financially going all in on these guys, like, well, this guy, like I thought, for example, DeAndre Ayton when he went to Arizona, I'm like, Arizona's going to win the national championship. Turns out, you know what? This guy's not Shaq.
He got beat in the first round.
This guy's not Anthony Davis. And again, he's number 1 overall pick, but it's like, is he? It's good. Like he's going to have a long career, but is he what we thought? Because I thought when I first remember you did a game, I remember seeing some highlights. I'm like, God damn, this guy's like Tim Duncan. And it's just, then you also realize, well, he's only 18 years old. So it's still hard.
Is a G League season going to be enough to answer those questions?
Yeah, I just wonder, like a big part of a player's hype is associating with the program, to me. Like a college player coming into the last several decades has been, this guy went to Kentucky. This guy went to Michigan. This guy went to Duke or North Carolina. This guy went to Arizona. And then you're part of the fraternity of the other guys in the league. It's a big point of pride. I mean, you would agree it's huge in the NFL, right? This guy went to this school for a lot of guys. I'm not saying for, like Richard Sherman, do we talk every day about Stanford? No. But like if you look, Nick Bosa, Ohio State, it's a big deal for them. We had known about Nick Bosa forever. Buckner and Armstead, we'd watch them play in the national championship. Like think about the guys in this draft. You're like, damn, Joe Burrow, Tua. We're in basketball. Are you excited for this NBA draft? I mean, if the Warriors didn't have a pick, I'd be like, I barely watching these guys play.
Well, yeah, Wiseman stopped playing. LaMelo was in Australia, got hurt. Anthony Edwards was on a terrible team at Georgia. Obi Toppin played at Dayton. So even if you watch college basketball, you saw him, but you didn't see him like you would have if he'd played at Kentucky or something like that.
Didn't that make what last year now was only the one guy would made Zion's draft so cool? It's like,
it wasn't just the one guy. You watched him. You watched Cam Reddish. Right?
Yeah, you saw R.J. Barrett.
Yeah.
So I think basketball's in a weird point right now that I understand their it's not jealousy is the wrong word. They despise the NCAA, though they enjoy some of the things it gives them. When we were growing up, they just used them to our benefit or their benefit, and us as fans benefited. Like college, you know what you don't hear in the NFL? Like fucking college football losers. The NFL loves college football. I get it's different, and players in basketball sometimes are more equipped, but more often than not, they're not. Like it took LeBron James. Like LeBron James is an all-time outlier. Right? Most high school guys, even if they become good, take a while. Hell, guys that come out of college, that like Steph Curry, James Harden, Klay Thompson, Kawhi, takes them a while. To me, building up your stars in college used to be a big deal in basketball, and it's not. And I think that's led to their popularity of the league being down.
It hurts. It helps and I think it's just think about the
helps
draft.
The NFL immensely.
So much, and it's not just one. It's not just guys coming out of high school. It's guys just not being 3-year players.
Like if I tell you right now, and I don't know if this is going to happen, but if the Raiders and Niners both take in some order CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, both those guys are giving their teams and their fans players that they immediately have a history.
Well, those two guys both have bigger name recognition than whoever the number 1 pick in the NBA draft is.
Do you even think it's close?
I would say sometimes the 31st pick has more name recognition. I mean, the second rounders have more name recognition. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is.
Would you say Jordan Love is every bit as famous right now as like Wiseman?
Yeah.
Or was that stretch?
No, I think if we put it's tough, but I would say yes. I think more people casually could have a conversation about Jordan Love than could casually have a conversation about James Wiseman.
Would you say Joe Burrow is infinitely more famous than any NBA prospect right now?
Yeah, I mean maybe LaMelo, just because he's LaMelo Ball. But even
He'd be
then,
the
I don't think
curveball.
people could tell you anything. Like they know of the balls, but they don't. How tall is LaMelo Ball?
You'd
What's
be
his
like,
game like?
Where's he been playing? Wait, where'd he go to college? He go to UCLA too? You wouldn't be able to keep up. The casual sports fan has no clue about Australia, right? Because that's complicated. Because he was there, then he left.
He got
Did
hurt.
he go to Australia or
He
Lithuania?
went to Australia, but he got hurt.
Didn't he start in Lithuania or one of those places? Didn't they buy a team?
Yeah, a couple years ago, because his other brother was on the team too, right?
So has LaMelo been to class in the last 4 years?
No, I doubt it.
Does LaMelo have a high school degree?
I don't know, probably, but maybe not. I don't know.
Was he ineligible for college? Is that why?
No,
he
was eligible.
He just didn't want to go to UCLA.
Well, I don't know what he wanted.
Did they not want him?
Well, no. Remember, they had his brother. They had
I know.
LiAngelo, and then LiAngelo got in trouble when they were in China for stealing sunglasses.
For the products. Yeah.
And then
But they took LiAngelo basically just to get I almost called him Laval.
LaMelo.
Who's the guy on the Pelicans? We got LeVar, LaMelo, LiAngelo, and
AKA Jello.
who's the fucking Pelican? Who's the Alonzo?
Yeah.
So they took LiAngelo basically to get Lonzo and LaMelo, right?
Yeah. It was Jello. Is he older than LaMelo? I mean, Lonzo?
Yeah.
Jello's
No.
older?
No, but I'm saying they felt good about taking LiAngelo because they still wanted.
Yeah, because they had Lonzo and they were getting.
But they
LaMelo.
knew it
and
made
LaMelo
Lonzo
was going to be the most
But
talented.
it also made
prospect.
Lonzo and LeVar feel good that they had already made an offer and committed to their younger brother.
Yeah.
Like it was a whole package deal for two of the three of them.
Yeah.
So you're saying that LaMelo, if he'd wanted to and LeVar would have let him, could have gone to UCLA. Like he qualified.
Well, I don't know ultimately what, like, at the end of the day when it came time for him to sign. But, yeah, he was going to UCLA to play for Steve Alt. I mean, talk about UCLA dodging a bullet. They end up with Mick Cronin. Now, no LaMelo. They have a great year, ultimately.
Yeah. Would have been fun.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is the NBA, are we watching G League games in 15 years? Like, now, again, you would say minor league baseball doesn't really work that way, but the volume of teams they have in local communities is so big. It's a different animal than what.
To me, baseball does not parallel.
No.
Like football parallels basketball. Baseball is its own deal. And basketball is trying to break off from the way football. And football is giving you the blueprint. To me, it'd be simple. You just allow you allow guys out of high school, or you make it mandatory to go for 2 years. So worst case, you're going to get a lot of like Klay Thompson, Steph Curry go for the 2 years, and that'll help you because you know where they will be. UCLA, Kentucky, North Carolina. Guess what? Those games are on television all year long. Like that's what just TV's on. You're like, oh, this dude that's going to go number 1 overall is playing for North Carolina. He's a sophomore.
Yeah, I saw Chris Mack say this, the head coach at Louisville. He's like, look, that guy is always the top-end guy is going to go fine, but we'll still get all those other guys, and college basketball will be okay. I mean, yeah, college basketball will miss out on the times that they got Zion Williamson. Like, that was a big deal for college hoops. Now, if in the long run because the way I look at it is if you don't have Zion, that hurts. But there will still be just a best player in college basketball, right? Who's just the biggest star in college hoops. It's Zion. You can't plan anything around having Zions because he's just not – that's not normal.
But there's always going to be Zions and Kevin Garnett's and Kobe Bryant's, right? And LeBron.
And they're the exceptions. They're not going to be the rule. So I think college hoops will be okay. It'll just be interesting. Like, are guys who wouldn't have made any money in college – going to the G League for $25,000? Like, is that ever happening? And now if you're taking the C-level players from college or the B-level prospects?
Well, they're going to need to fill the team because they're building a select team that's led by this dude. So not every guy on that team is going to get paid a premium. Would they take a guy? Would a guy go for $50,000? That would have gone to
I think.
Let's say this would have gone to like Washington,
or wherever. Yeah, just guys who. I think that'd be their hope. Just in the same way that the XFL ultimately had hoped maybe we can, after a freshman year, get a quarterback who only wants to play one more year. We can pay him $200,000. He skips college. I guess he would still have to play 2 years. Yeah, and he plays 2 years in the XFL while he's making money instead of – right? I mean, that would have been ideal for the XFL. Watch a premium running back. Watch Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end, pay him for 2 years, and then he goes pro.
You want to put our money together and buy the XFL? It's in bankruptcy. We can just buy it. I saw that I saw a headline that says the XFL hopes they get bought and keeps on running next year.
Oh, I think they might.
I don't know what the price is, but it's probably not cheap.
Can we do some co-branding?
Yeah, I mean, we would be the voice of the XFL and the owners and do whatever we want. But then the problem is if another pandemic hits, we're shit out of luck.
Yeah, I know. It'd be a risk.
But we would have got it at a cheap price.
It'd be bold. Instead of the XFL, it's just called the Ham FL.
Yeah, we call whatever we want.
Before we move on, John, this podcast brought to you in part by Manscaped.com. Promo code HAM. Manscaped, the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. Right now, go to Manscaped.com. Use the promo code HAM.
Manscaped.com, promo code HAM. Lawnmower 3.0. We originally got the 2.0. Now we got the 3.0. I actually used it yesterday. Get a lot of different uses.
Getting ready for the weekend.
Yeah, you got to get ready for the weekend. You don't want any stragglers, popping out. And the great thing is, guy, when you use it on the testicles, when you use it on the body, you don't have to worry about cutting yourself because we've all used some of those old school shavers that all of a sudden you catch a little flesh and you got a bleeder. The lawn, it's smooth, guy. It's smooth. USB charger, easy to use. Love the Lawnmower 3.0.
Here's the great thing right now. When you go to Manscaped.com, use the promo code HAM. You also get 2 free gifts for subscribers. The Shed Travel Bag, which is a $39 value added, and the patented high-performance anti-chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. So it's the perfect package for your perfect package. 20% off and free shipping. The code HAM at Manscaped.com. 20% off free shipping. Code HAM. Manscaped.com. 20% off free shipping. Manscaped.com. Promo code HAM.
Promo code HAM.
JT Daniels, transfer portal. USC quarterback, was going to be the guy. Early enrollee. It was all going well. Actually had a good start to his first game. Tears his ACL. Keaton Slovis replaces him. And on Thursday, Clay Helton, the head coach at USC, said we're going to help him do whatever. Hope maybe that means he ends up back here at SC, but he's investigating the portal. I would not mind seeing him, just selfishly. I know Clay wants him back at SC. I'm sure a lot of people want him. I wouldn't mind seeing him at Michigan. I would, we're still waiting for old Harbs to get a premium QB prospect over there onto the field playing. Oh, they got a McCaffrey.
Yeah, I mean, is he ever going to land just a legitimate quarterback on his own from the jump? I wouldn't like that because typically transfer quarterbacks, for the most part, I got red flag, guy. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, how many starting quarterbacks in the NFL? And if we're going to talk about you in college, we ultimately view you good enough to talk about like you're going to be an NFL player transfer. And I think you start thinking about it in the back. Now, I get times are different. Like with Tom Brady, if Tom Brady was 2020, would he have transferred? And remember, there were rumors, like after his second year, that he was going to transfer to Cal. I'd say now he probably does, right?
Yeah.
A player of his caliber. But I think you just go around Carr, Goff, Jimmy. Russell did, but I'd say his circumstances were not football related. It was because the coach didn't want him to play baseball. Little unique.
I thought they just were ready to move on to Mike Glennon because he was a grad transfer.
Kind of, but remember, he wanted to play during the spring. He was playing baseball, and that was a big thing. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Drew Brees.
Joe Flacco
played at the same
transferred.
Yeah, Penn State.
Once upon a time,
he had one good year. Eli, Darnold.
Josh Allen transferred. JC, not the same.
I wouldn't say. Yep, not the same. Baker transferred. Not ideal.
Yeah, that doesn't help the argument for transfers, I don't think. Kyler? Did you say Kyler?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little weird. Kyler, I did not say Kyler, but that's a good one. Good nugget. Kicked out of school, though. Forced. But you'd say, the guys you're listening are a little polarizing, right?
But look, now the number one pick's going to be Joe Burrow, who was a transfer. Next year, the number one pick might be Justin Fields, who's a transfer.
I sound like my fucking dad on video games in '95.
He was right about that, actually.
But he's not. Like, every kid video games are really popular.
Yeah, but he might have been right that it'll be, fry your brain.
Yeah, I mean, what's the difference? What's TV?
Well, your dad's prediction wasn't, video games will never be big business.
No, it was just put down the goddamn controller and pick up a book.
Now he might say what I say, which is, why is anybody watching anybody else play video games? I don't get it. Now get out of the way. I'm watching the combine.
Exactly.
Jim Gaffigan, have you seen his stand-up, his latest stand-up?
No.
Are you? I haven't watched a lot of Gaffigan, but I'm pretty familiar with him. But he's got this.
Because he's unique. He doesn't swear, right?
No, I don't think he does. But he's got this great bit about.
That's one of his things. He's
got this bit about like the people who watch other people run marathons.
Yeah.
And he's like, what if about how if you just like people running, he's like, but you can't pull that off at the gym. You can't just stand there watching some girl on the treadmill. Like, what are you doing? I'm supporting that girl over there on the treadmill. He does it with a funny face and a funny voice. It's a good bit.
I heard a pretty good one yesterday. Not stand-up comedian material, but if I was a stand-up, I would put this into somehow in my material. You notice this? When you talk to a girl and she's with her kids, like, what are you doing? I'm just at home with the kids. Like, we're just at home with the kids. I'm watching little Jimmy, or I'm with Julie. We're hanging out. She's just feeding or she's taking a nap. Whenever you hear a guy, I'm at home babysitting. No, those are your kids. Every single guy, when you ask him, like, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm just at home babysitting the 3 kids. No, you're at home with your family. You're the father. But every single guy, every single one uses the term, I'm babysitting.
Yeah.
No, we pay a babysitter. You're just watching your children.
And if they don't use babysitting, they're like, oh, they will say, if they say I'm home with the kids, it'll be like, oh, my wife is out, I'm home with the kids. Like the woman never says, John's out, I'm home with the kids. Like you just.
Yeah, they always act like they're a substitute teacher. No, you're also a teacher. It's fucking dual teaching class. You're one of the members. But they never want to take too much responsibility, so if a thing goes wrong, it's like on her. Listen, this was not my responsibility. Yeah. She left me alone. I told her it's a risky proposition. Because I was thinking about this. If I had a kid, I would say for like the first 2 years, I would be very nervous to be left alone. Touching, if they couldn't breathe, got choked on, I would not be comfortable in that situation at all. But the babysitting thing is funny. But back to what were we talking?
JT Daniels, Jim Harbaugh, transfer quarterback.
Yeah, I just think I when I first saw the headline, I was like, oh fuck. But then it's just part of the deal now.
Yeah,
it is the one position where only one guy plays. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
And I do think, just talking to people who know the USC program well, I don't think people think that there's about to be a quarterback competition there between Keaton Slovis as the returning guy. I think people think it's Keaton Slovis is gonna be the quarterback at USC, not JT when he's healthy from the ACL. Open competition. Which is kind of what was happening at Stanford. KJ Costello, who left, it was going to be him and Davis Mills were going to have a competition. But that's not what's happening at SC.
And to me, he would go under let's just look at recent elite guys that transferred. I would say Jacob Eason, it's hard to call him a failure. I mean, the guy's going to get drafted in like the top 100, but he by no means lived up to the hype, right? I think everyone would have said that out of high school, this guy has number 1 overall pick potential, size, arm strength, and it just hasn't gone well. The next year, the same guy, Justin Fields, who looked like, God, this guy can't throw. A year later, he's at Ohio State. He looks unreal, and you go, he made the right move transferring. So I need to stop being an old man and judge transfers like I used to, because do I blame him? I mean, hell, I might do the same thing if I was him.
Yeah, you might.
Now, there's also is he ever going to live up to the hype? I didn't think he looked that good as a freshman, but I did think before he hurt his ACL, he looked dramatically better to me in that first game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, God, this guy might be a dude.
Yeah.
But then the problem, like you said, Slovis comes in, he's sweet.
I tell JT,
third guy to start the season?
What's that?
Was Slovis the third guy, or was he the backup?
He was the backup, but then he got hurt, and then the third guy came in, remember, and beat Utah.
Oh, just throwing prayers
YOLO
up.
balls. Yeah, I like to call him. Matt Fink. Then that guy played against UW. Then Slovis came back.
Okay, that's what happened. So Slovis, he got a concussion or something, right?
Yeah.
I forget what the injury was.
Yeah,
but
he got hurt against Utah. Like they threw him down or something.
Yeah. And the other guy just came in and just threw these Hail Marys up that somehow they made the plays.
Yeah. The passes that Herbert couldn't throw because he didn't have those guys.
Exactly.
So.
Can you imagine Herbert if he would have been on USC the last couple years?
I read PFF said Michael Pittman Jr. had 5 drops in his career.
That's pretty good. When I was watching the Super Bowl 2002, with the Raiders, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like Pittman was trucking dudes in that game. The dad.
You went to college, right?
For Fresno State Bulldog.
But
did they have a backfield of Lorenzo and Pittman? Or
no, Lorenzo
later?
was like early 90s.
Yeah, Pittman was. Pat Hill got there. Pat Hill had a famous story that he kicked Michael Pittman off the playing field, and for a split second, it looked like Pittman was going to come after him. This is back when the Dogs were like probably a mixture of like junior college ball meets what's the show on Netflix? Last Chance U meets Division I ball. It was like a combination of it all. And just had a little edge to it.
A lot of non-qualifiers, they called it at that time.
Yeah,
guys
dudes
didn't qualify
should have
for
been
other
at
schools.
Last Chance U, but they got to go to Fresno State. And it just got a little contentious. Now it all worked out, I think. But, yeah, they had a lot of guys that you could not – that doesn't exist now, the non-qualifiers. Fresno State was just open arms.
It worked, too.
It did. In fairness to Michael Pittman, I don't know if he might have been a qualifier. Like Logan Mankins didn't qualify for college. He had like a 0.0. Went on to be a borderline Hall of Famer.
How much
like
money
if Fresno
did he
State
make?
didn't exist, if the prop, whatever it was called
Prop
back
48.
then, did not exist, Logan Mankins probably does not play football. Think about that.
He doesn't go to junior college?
Well, no, I think he was just going to go farm. He's just Mariposa. You should bring – I'm a big believer bring back the Prop 48s for only non-Power 5. And let's just equal it out a little bit.
I like it.
So all of a sudden you're like, God, Nevada's number 3 overall.
I do it for all the
program in
California
country?
schools, John. We gotta get back to beating the SEC coming in here, taking out Michael Thomas.
I agree.
I didn't know Michael Thomas was a California guy until you tweeted that. LA guy, you said?
No clue either.
What were his final schools? I mean, I said LSU, but obviously he went to the Big Ten.
He's
He went
from
to Ohio State.
Woodland Hills in Southern California. I'd never in a million years.
SC had to be a finalist, right? It had to be like SC, Ohio State, Texas.
I just went to his Wikipedia. I'm going to go to Michael Thomas Rivals 2012. He was a 4-star. He was the number 4 overall player in the country.
How was the number 4 overall player in the country a 4-star?
You gotta.
I like that though. You can't hand out 5 stars, like they're candy.
Yeah, I mean Boise, Notre Dame. Maybe he was like an under the radar prospect.
That ends up at Ohio State.
Well, I mean Ohio State, like he didn't have as many offers. Maybe they just saw him at a camp. It was one of those, and like God, maybe he would have blown up, but he just committed and it.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. On that note,
Godspeed.